Hi, it's Jack, and this is the podcast version of this episode. If you want to read the words as they're being analysed, then if you're on Spotify, you can become a subscriber of this channel or head over to the YouTube channel. And on both platforms, you can also sign up to get exclusive episodes and early access to the regular weekly episodes too. Let's get to the bottom of the Salt Path scandal. Is it truth? Or is it fiction? You'll know by the end of this episode. And if you haven't heard of the Salt Path scandal, stand by because it is nothing like what I usually do here. We're leaving behind the world of crime for the English countryside. Welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. What I do here is different from anywhere else because I only look at the words that are said, or in this case written, and then use my process of statement investigation to see where the truth lies, where deception could be happening, and to see the motivations of someone as well. It's a process that I use with investigators, with the media, and with corporate clients as well to get to the truth of what is being said. So what is the case here? What have we got going on? Well, look, The Salt Path is a book and it's now a film, and it's written by Rainer Wynn, and it's about a time when her and her husband were made homeless, and then he was given a medical diagnosis that was terminal, and they went for a walk and their life got a hell of a lot better. It's resonated with a lot of people. I hadn't heard about it as well until the scandal broke this week. The allegations were raised this week that everything was not as it seems with them. We'll go through the specific allegations as we deal with Wynn's statement, because Wynn has released a very wordy statement on her website, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to go through and look at it, and what I do is look at the words that are used to get to the heart of what is really being said. So let's dive into Wynn's statement, and it starts: "Over the past few days, I have had vitriol poured on me from all quarters, along with threats directed at me, my family, and our children." So her first thing that she says is always very important. It's a priority for them to get out. And the first thing that Rainer says in this is creating a sense that she's the victim. "I have had vitriol poured on me from all quarters, along with threats directed at me, my family, and our children." So what we've got going on there is, please feel sorry for me. Now, the allegations are kind of saying she's run a bit of a con or a scam, that the story that she told in the book, The Salt Lake, is not true. So this is her, I think, getting ahead of them and saying, look, my readers aren't the victims. The people who went to see the film, they're not the victims. I'm the victim here. Feel sorry for me. So she wants to get off on this foot of being seen as a victim. She continues, "It has been incredibly hard to remain silent, something that I've had to do whilst waiting to receive legal advice. That legal advice is ongoing, but I can now speak up." Now, if you're called a liar, if someone says to you, you're telling lies there, what do? Do you go and get legal advice? Or do you hit back straight away? So the fact that she's felt she had to take legal advice is instructive. And again, one of the first things she talks about is the legal advice that she has taken here. That legal advice is ongoing is a strange phrase. Does that mean she's continuing to act on this legal advice? Therefore, this is not everything that's going on in her head. Or is it something that she thinks will make excuses for how limited what she says is? She's acting under legal advice. It's a common tactic that people use when they are not being 100% fully transparent or able to say anything, is it's under the guise of legal advice. You'll notice it's only legal advice. It's not a law, it's not a rule, it's only advice that they are following here. The statement continues, "The Observer article is grotesquely unfair, highly misleading, and seeks to systematically pick apart my life." Now, what we've got here now is the language of persuasion. The meaning of this sentence would not be changed if she had left out the words grotesquely and highly. The Observer article is unfair, misleading, and seeks to systematically pick apart my life. But what she's doing is she's putting in these persuasive words, grotesquely and highly, in order to persuade us. Why does she feel the need to persuade us? I don't know. But for some reason, she doesn't just think saying it's unfair and misleading will be enough. So she wants to say it's grotesquely unfair and it's highly misleading. Look, an article is either misleading or it's not misleading. Highly misleading doesn't mean anything. But as our walk along the Salt Path taught us, when life has ground you into the dirt, you need to stand up, turn your face to the wind and continue to be unafraid. And that is what I do. Now, you will notice that she says the article with the allegations is unfair and misleading. She doesn't say it's not right. She doesn't say there's no truth in that article at all. She doesn't say it's lies. It's just unfair and misleading. And misleading means that things are presented and the conclusion got to is wrong, but what's been presented, that's not in doubt there in what she says there. Raynor's statement continues. The salt path is about what happened to Moth and me. Moth is Raynor's husband. Moth and me after we lost our home and found ourselves homeless on the headlands of the southwest. You'll notice no persuasive language in any of that, nothing to convince us that this is what the book is about. It's very straightforward. It's not about every event or moment in our lives, but rather about a capsule of time. So what she is saying here, as she's stating things in the negative, it's not about every event or moment in our lives. So the allegation is there's much more to the story than what was in the book, that there are other things that are happening that just weren't mentioned in the story. So what we've got going on here is that she is saying the story is a boxed off version of events. It's not everything. The full story is not in the book. She's saying that explicitly. There is more to my life than goes on than I put in the book. You could say that is a lie of omission in the book, that she hasn't told the full facts and everything that's lying there. Or you could say, look, I get that. You never said this was all my life. You said this is the story I'm going to tell you about a certain point in my life. I understand that. So it's a capsule of time when our lives move from a place of complete despair to a place of hope. The journey held within those pages is one of salt and weather, of pain and possibility, and I can't allow any more doubt to be cast on the validity of those memories or the joy they have given to so many. Now, I look at authors' words kind of frequently, people who are very good at working with words, and that's what we've got here. It's a picture painting exercise. The journey of from despair to hope, the salt in the face, the weather in the face, pain and possibility, all done by a writer, someone who's very good with words, to paint a picture. Doesn't mean they're lying, just means they're painting this picture. What I found interesting, though, was that last part. I can't allow any more doubt to be cast on the validity of those memories, not on the validity of the story. Memories are a different thing. Memories don't always have to be true. It is very hard to disprove someone's memory of something. You can disprove the facts and you can disprove the events, but if someone wants to pretend something has happened, they can talk about their memory. For example, I don't remember that happening. Well, maybe they do remember that happening, but it's very hard to prove when they say they don't remember it that they are lying. Very much the same here. It's not validity on the truth of the story, but on the memories. So is what's going on here saying, this is my memory of what happened, not necessarily everything, maybe not even necessarily the truth, it's my memory of what happened. Before I go any further, says Raynor, it's important to say the Observer were offered the opportunity by my lawyers to discuss in detail the allegations made against me, to correct their inaccurate account and to be guided on the truth, on the basis that the discussion would not be made public. However, they chose not to take it, preferring to pursue their highly misleading narrative. This is an interesting one. Remember before she said the book is not everything. So there already is a concept there, when she said it's not about every moment in our event or moment in our lives. So there's a concept there that things are already being hidden. That's not necessarily nefariously hidden. It's just, here's the bit I'm presenting and the other stuff I'm not talking about. And here we have another allusion to the fact that she wants things to be hidden. She wanted to have this discussion with the Observer, but she did not want that discussion to be made public. So Raynor is letting us know in her words that she prefers and would rather some things were hidden. It's explicitly there in her words that she wanted to have this as long as the discussion would not be made public. Also, the concept of the Observer being guided on the truth. Not, let's be truthful, let's tell them what the truth is about these allegations, but guiding on the truth. That feels more like having to take someone along on a journey with you rather than presenting and stating the facts as they are. So here's the allegations, here's the truth. And that would not be guiding towards the truth. That would be showing the truth. Guiding suggests a little bit more persuasion, a little bit more persuasive work has to be done to get people to come across here to the truth. But it's not. It's distant. It's not just given the truth. Then again, look, discussion would not be made public. Raynor is saying here, I like hiding things. I want to hide things. And then again, we have this highly misleading narrative. So we've got that persuasive word, highly, again there, and misleading again. Not untrue, Not lies, not falsehoods, just misleading. And then Rayner goes on in the statement to deal with some of the specific allegations. So she starts with Moth's health. In the book, Salt Path, Moth is diagnosed with a terminal illness in the week between them being told they need to leave the house and having to leave the house. He's diagnosed with this terminal illness, but they went on this long walk along the Salt Path and Moth's condition, his health, improved. So what does Rayner have to say about Moth's health? Firstly, let me address Moth's health. With Mothy's permission and on the advice of a neurologist, I am releasing excerpts from 2 clinic letters showing he is being treated for CBD/S. We'll come to that in a minute. And has been for many years. Now, non-specific there, not since the time that in the book it was said he received the diagnosis. It's just has been for many years, not has been since 2015, 2013, whenever this walk was supposed to happen. This is deeply personal information that no one should ever be forced to share. The redacted sections are for the personal privacy of Moth and the doctors involved. So part of the allegation, by the way, is that neurologists in the article in The Observer said if Moth had this condition, CBD, at the time he was said to have had it in the book, then he should expect to be dead by now. Most people who have this condition go downhill, deteriorate rapidly, and their prognosis, the amount of time they'd be given to live, is incredibly short, in a period of, I think, about 6 years. And Moth is still with us more than 6 years on. And people said in this article, doctors said in this article, that doesn't sound right to us. The letters that are in here, in the statement, kind of inconclusive to me. And I get maybe people don't save every single letter. Maybe the formal diagnosis wasn't communicated in writing, but the letters don't appear very conclusive to me at all. Let's go back to the statement. Among the Observer's many accusations, the most heartbreaking is the suggestion that Moth has made up his illness. Moth has made up his illness. The suggestion in the Observer, according to Rayner. Well, it's not, because the allegation in the Observer is that the illness given to Moth in the book isn't true. He didn't have that illness. And that's not quite the way she says it, because number one, Moth has made up his illness. Well, actually, the allegation would be Rayner made it up for the purposes of the book. So that's not what the allegation is, and made up his illness. Now, the allegation is not suffering from the illness you say he is, not made up an illness. Like, made up an illness is coming up with a brand new disease or condition or something like that. So that is not what the allegation is. And it's interesting that you choose to word it entirely differently, taking yourself out of it, Rayner, and putting it on Moth. There could be several bits of truth behind what that is. Is it that Moth actually is the driving force behind this and this whole story and this whole adventure? Could be. Could be that she wants to create distance, so she doesn't want to come out because it's hard psychologically for her to say the allegation is I made up that Moth was suffering from this illness, and she wants to really turn this down. She carries on. This is utterly vile, unfair and false. She carries on. This utterly vile, unfair and false suggestion has emotionally devastated Moth. The characteristics she gives to it there are vile, unfair and false. Interesting order. Vile. So the first thing she wants to deal with is not the fact this isn't true, but the fact that this is not nice. This is nasty. Unfair. Again, unfair is not untrue. And finally, false comes at the end of it. Now, Moth has not made up his illness because it is an illness that exists. You know, someone may have made up the fact that Moth is suffering from this illness, but the wording here is all very curious. But if she changes the allegation slightly to Moth has made up his illness, like Moth has made up an illness that's not real, then that is false. But it's not the allegation that is there. It's emotionally devastated Moth, who has fought so hard against the insidious condition of corticobasal syndrome. Now, that's not what she said Moth suffered from, as she talks about. CBS is a rare condition about which we still know very little, but to classify how the condition is discussed, corticobasal degeneration, CBD, as I've described his condition in my previous books, is now more commonly referred to by neurologists as corticobasal syndrome, CBS. CBS being the clinical diagnosis which describes the symptoms observed during life while reserving CBD for the disease observed at post-mortem. From here on, I'll refer to the condition as CBS. So in all of this, without saying I've been calling it the wrong name all this time, without saying I've been calling it CBD and he's had CBS, she just goes, this is what is now known, so I'm going to refer to it differently. She doesn't admit to any error here or saying that she got the wrong terminology. She alludes to the fact the terminology has changed, but she's not saying that it was a recent thing. It's just now more commonly referred to by neurologists as CBS. So from here, she is saying, I got it wrong. I gave it the wrong name. The condition that I described in my books is not the one that he was suffering from. He was suffering from CBS. I have charted Moth's condition with such a level of honesty that this is the most unbearable of the allegations. I have charted Moth's condition with such a level of honesty. Now, she's telling us, she has a concept of levels of honesty. Honesty can be thought of as quite a binary thing. You're either honest or you're not. But she is saying here, in her value system, if you like, she has levels of honesty as a concept, which again just goes to this theme of hiding things, of not telling the full story, of only focusing on a sliver of the story, such as what she's saying is in the book. This has become the most unbearable of the allegations. Unbearable, again, not untrue, not most unbearable of the false accusations. My books have become a record of his health. So not my books were written as a record of his health, they've become a record of his health. Not are a record of his health, have become a record of his health. So again, she's not saying I faithfully recorded the condition as we went through the books. From the mornings when I need to physically help him from the bed and into the physio routine that makes his days possible. And you'll notice right here, both Raynor and Moth are present in the pronouns. From the mornings where I, Raynor, from where I need to physically help him being Moth, help him from the bed and into the physio routine that makes his days possible. Get all that? There are people present there. And then she talks about other things. Through the movement issues, the bowel problems, the memory slips, the stiffness, the pain, the fatigue, the obsessions and the despair. To the times on our very long walks when those symptoms have improved. Now you'll notice it's the movement issues, not his movement issues. He's completely disappeared from this range of symptoms that are there. The bowel problems, the exact same. It's not his bowel problems. The memory slips, not his memory slips. The stiffness, not the stiffness that he suffered from. Not the pain that he had, it's just the pain. The fatigue, the obsessions and the despair. She doesn't attach Moth to all of these things. She does attach herself to helping him from bed and attaches him to that. But the other parts, Moth completely disappears. I have never sought to offer medical advice in my books or suggest that walking might be some sort of miracle cure for CBS. Well, you wouldn't because you didn't call it CBS. I am simply charting Moth's own personal journey and his battle with the illness and what has helped him. Then she says a very curious thing to me. The diagnosis didn't come from a simple test, but rather from a long and complex route of observation where sufferers may have symptoms for many years before they finally reach a diagnosis. Now, again, Moth is completely absent in this paragraph. It's not his diagnosis. It's not he had a simple test. It's not that he had a complex route of observation. It's just sufferers. Listen to it again. Moth's not here. The diagnosis doesn't come from a simple test, but rather from a long and complex route of observation where sufferers, not Moth, sufferers may have symptoms for many years before they finally reach a diagnosis. So Moth has completely disappeared once more when talking about this illness. Now, when this scandal broke, the first thing I did before the statement had dropped, I went to look at some interviews with Raynor on some recent podcasts and videos just to see if there was anything in it, if I could see in the interviews if she was being deceptive or not. And I noticed something very strange at the time, which was that in recent interviews, when she described Moth's diagnosis and when he received the diagnosis, in two different interviews, she used almost the exact same words. So in the Happy Place podcast, so this is away from the statement at the moment, but in the Happy Place podcast, Raynor said, in that week, that's the week they were made homeless, in that week, my husband Moth had a hospital appointment that we thought was going to be routine, turned out to be anything but, and he was diagnosed with a neurodegenerative disease that had no treatment and no cure. On the One Show television programme, she said, in that week, Moth had what we thought was going to be just a routine hospital appointment, but it turned out to be anything but, and he was diagnosed with a neurodegenerative condition that had no treatment and no cure. Now, does that description match the one that she gave, the one that was more general? In that week, Moth Moth has what we thought was going to be just a routine hospital appointment. Well, if it had involved all the things that she spoke about before, which are the symptoms for many years, a long and complex route of observation, symptoms for many years before they finally reach a diagnosis. If that's what was going on to get your diagnosis, you think it was just a routine hospital appointment? No, you wouldn't. It turned out to be anything but. And he was diagnosed with a neurodegenerative condition that had no treatment and no cure. I noted, and I was interested in those interviews that I observed, she didn't name the neurodegenerative condition. She just gave it this general term of neurodegenerative condition. In these interviews, she didn't mention CBD or CBS. I know in the books that she has, but for some reason in these recent interviews, she shied away from doing that. But her description on these television interviews about the diagnosis does not match that general one about how the diagnosis happens, that it doesn't come from a simple test, but from doing a long and complex routine of observation. Sufferers may have had symptoms for many years before they finally reach a diagnosis. If that was what was going on, you would not think that you had a hospital appointment that you thought was going to be routine, but turned out to be anything but. Let's go back to the statement. Even then, many sufferers' symptoms present in an atypical way. They might not present with the same symptoms, occurring in the same order or with the same severity. As I've explained many times in my books, we will always be grateful that Moth's version of CBS is indolent. So once more, she's talking in the general and she's not talking about Moth. Even then, many sufferers' symptoms present in an atypical way. She doesn't say moths have. They might not present with the same symptoms occurring in the same order. Again, this is not about Moth. And then she says, as explained many times in my books, we will always be grateful that Mothy's version of CBS is indolent. Now, she's pointing out here, she's been consistent. She's explained this many times in the books. I've explained many times in my books. Something that liars do, now I'm not saying Rayner is lying here because we haven't reached our conclusion, but it's a data point. Something that liars do is point out how consistent they are, because they believe the more consistent they are, the more believable their lies will be, and that also it's not just enough for them to feel that they have been consistent, they like to point it out. Is that what is happening here? As I've explained many times in my books, we will always be grateful that Mothy's version of CBS is indolent. No, you haven't explained that many times in your books because you called it CBD, but you're excusing all that and moving it. Its slow progression, page 15 in the Salt Path, has allowed us time to discover how walking helped him, how others aren't so lucky. The effect of the suggestion that Moth has made up this condition has been absolutely traumatizing for him. So once more, we've got this strange wording about it. The suggestion was that you made it up, Rayner. You were not telling the truth about it in the book. That's the allegation that's been put to you. You may be denying this at this point. But what you're not really denying it though, because you're denying Moth has made up this condition. And again, it's made up this condition as if it's the condition that's been invented. The allegation is he's invented a brand new condition. No, the allegation is that it's being said that he suffers from something that he doesn't suffer from. Not made up this condition at all. Now, this is someone who's very good with words. So why are they using this curious form of words around this? And that's twice it's been there now. It's no accident. Moth has made up this condition. And it's been absolutely traumatizing for him. Suggestions made by people who do not know him, have never met him, and have never seen his medical records. But even worse is the effect on those sufferers who have looked to Moth as a beacon of hope. And here we have something that we're going to see quite a bit here, which is Rayner attempting to connect and persuade the audience. And it's not just us that's suffering, it's everyone that suffers from the condition. Now, that doesn't mean the allegations are true or the allegations are false. It's really got nothing to do with the substance of the allegations. But what she's getting at here is these allegations in themselves are bad, not just for us. I'm going to connect it and say there are more victims here, the sufferers who have looked to Moth as a beacon of hope. To hope that maybe not now, maybe not for them, but maybe at some point in the future we might find some answers to the condition that has no treatment and no cure. Interesting, no treatment, no cure is one of her stock phrases that she was using in those interviews. So let's go on to embezzlement allegations. There is an allegation in the article that she embezzled money from a former employer. She says, on to the allegation that I embezzled money. The dispute with Martin Hemmings, referred to in The Observer by his wife, is not the court case in the Salt Path. So let's be really clear with that. I don't believe it is. I think this is all very true. Nor did it result in us losing our home. Mr. Hemmings is not Cooper. Mrs. Hemmings is not in the book, nor is she a relative of someone who is. Okay, fine. Got that scene set. I worked for Martin Hemmings in the years before the economic crash of 2008. For me, it was a pressured time. It was also a time when mistakes were made. It's also a time when mistakes were being made in the business. Now that's very passive. Who was making the mistakes? What were the mistakes? Mistakes were being made in the business. Now, you've got to say, if the mistakes were being made by someone else, I think she would say Martin Hemmings was making mistakes in the business, but she's hiding who made the mistakes. Now, why is she hiding who made the mistakes? Why is she not saying who made the mistakes? Why is she not saying what the mistakes are? I think we can draw our own conclusions to one of the highly possible reasons why that would happen. Any mistakes I made during the years in that office, I deeply regret and I'm truly sorry. So it's any. It's a Weasley apology there. It's not the mistakes I made during the years in that office, I deeply regret and I'm truly sorry. It's only any. And mistakes can be subjective. And mistakes, actually embezzling money, the allegation of embezzling money, that's not a mistake, that's a deliberate embezzlement. And what she's not saying is, I didn't embezzle money. She's kind of saying, I may have made any mistakes. There may have been mistakes, but maybe not, because it's only any. Any can be some, none. So she's not taking this allegation on at all. She's not saying it's false. I did not embezzle money. Why can't she say that? Why can't she say that if she didn't embezzle money? Mr. Hemmings made an allegation against me to the police, accusing me of taking money from the company. She doesn't say I didn't do that, by the way. I was questioned. I was not charged, nor did I face criminal sanctions. I reached a settlement with Martin Hemmings because I did not have the evidence required to support what happened. What happened? And maybe tell us about this evidence. Maybe just go into a little bit more detail. If you can tell us what evidence you thought you might have been able to get to put an end to these allegations of embezzlement, why not tell us? It's very vague. It's very, hidden. The terms of the settlement were willingly agreed by both parties. Mr. Hemmings was keen to reach a private resolution, as was I. Once more, we have this let's hide things away, let's keep things private concept with her. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying this is a characteristic of Raynor, is that she only wants to let us in on a specific portion of her life, of her story, that she's happy to let us in on. And she's saying in her words, there are some things I would rather have hidden. That's why we have the private resolution that Mr. Hemmings was keen to reach, as was I. Part of the settlement was that I would pay money to Mr. Hemmings on a non-admissions basis. I mean, do I need to say any more than that? A non-admissions basis, is that hiding an admission? I mean, you don't really say. It's not, certainly, I didn't admit anything because I didn't do anything. It's the money was paid on a non-admissions basis. This is why we needed the money back from Cooper that we invested, and I come on to that next. And we will come on to that next. We will look at the second half of the statement where we look at the financial losses that they got, and something very interesting about why I've called her Raynor Wynn all the way through this, but Raynor Wynn is not her real name. Listen, do you ever feel you're not being told the full story? Do you ever feel people are keeping things hidden from you? Sound familiar? Yeah, it's very much like this statement. And you're right, it is happening all the time, and I'm here to give you the key to seeing deeper. This is about hearing the world with new ears. And I'm on a mission to share this with as many people as possible. So if you want to be in on the secret, subscribe to this channel or follow it, but just join in with the movement. In the archives, there's a hell of a lot for you to take in to find out where you can see deception, the truth, and the motivations of someone merely by looking at their words. And do you know someone who would benefit from having this knowledge? Well, then help spread the word, because if you hit the like button or if you subscribe to the channel, it all helps. Recommend it, pass it on, because it fuels the fire. Every click, every single share, it allows me to dig deeper, to analyse further, and to bring this life-changing skill to more people. Now, I regularly hear from grateful audience members who've navigated tricky situations in their own lives using the listening and analysis skills that they've learned on this channel. So that like, that share, that subscribe could make a big difference to someone's life. It is a great gift to give. Shall we go back to the statement of Miss Wynn now? And she's going to deal with how we lost our home. In The Salt Path, I describe a financial dispute with a lifetime friend who I call Cooper to protect his family. In the early 1990s, Moth made an investment in Cooper's property portfolio. When the investment was due to mature, Cooper claimed it had failed due to low occupancy. However, we later discovered this was not the case. When we raised this with him, he conceded that although he couldn't at that time, he promised he would eventually pay us back. In 2008, financial crash time again, we asked for the money back. He said he didn't have it, but he offered us a loan through his company. Now, we asked for the money back. That's not how an investment works. An investment is when you put an amount of money into something, and investments could go up as well as down. It's a well-known phrase, but you don't typically go and ask for your money back in an investment. You may want to do something with it, or you may want to see what it's worth, but you can't just ask for your investment money back. You can do that with a loan. If you've loaned someone the money, you can ask for your money back. He said he didn't have it, but offered us a loan through his company. We agreed. Because the loan was coming from his company, he said it had to follow the company's standard loan terms, 18% interest, which he would cover, and a charge on our home in his name. He assured us this was standard practice. I mean, asking for your money back and being given a loan does not sound like standard practice to me, and would soon repay the loan to his company and the charge would be removed. We were uneasy, but after so many years, it seemed like a way to finally resolve the issue. Getting a loan from someone is a way to resolve an issue. Having your house at risk is a way to resolve an issue of getting money. No, it's not. We trusted that Cooper would honour his word and repay the money to his company as repayment of our original investment. That is not a standard investment. That is not how investments work. But he didn't return the money to us or his company, and the charge against our home wasn't removed. Instead, he used the charge on our home to pay off his business creditors. In 2010, his company went into liquidation. As a result, in 2011, the repossession proceedings on our home began. So we've got some background there. Doesn't sound like an investment, sounds more like a loan. Doesn't sound like something that would ease your mind. I mean, you know, loans turn into be stressful things. So I don't know why that would ease your mind. We tried to argue that the debt was owed to the company, not him personally. So we tried to argue. It's not we made the point. It's we tried to argue that the debt was owed to the company, not him personally. So he had no right to hold the charge. But we couldn't afford a lawyer and had to represent ourselves. It drained everything. We put our home up for sale to try and protect some of the value, but it didn't sell. Meanwhile, the pressure from the claimants to sell was relentless. The constant letters, emails, daily calls, it was almost unbearable, and Moth was shaken that his friend, who had been so tolerant for so long, would do this. She really does have a sense of how things in life affect Moth, her husband, doesn't she? In desperation, we briefly tried running a book-based house raffle like others had done, but quickly realised it was a mistake, as it clearly wasn't going to work. We cancelled it and refunded the few participants. Now, a couple of things on this one. Again, she is trying to join herself into others here. So running a raffle to sell the house, basically, it's not enough for her to say that this is what they did. She wants to maybe say that this is not an oddity because others had done it. She wants to make her behaviour sound more rational and reasonable to people who may doubt, why did you do that? Well, look, others have done it, so don't doubt it. It's not just me that was doing this. Other people had done this. It's hiding in the safety of the crowd. I also want to know, in the whole statement, everything in it seems kind of relevant, apart from in desperation, we briefly tried running a book-based house raffle like others had done, but quickly realised it was a mistake as it clearly wasn't going to work. We cancelled it and refunded the few participants. Why mention that bit? I want to know. If you do have any ideas on that, let me know in the comments. Why is that bit mentioned? The entire statement would mean the exact same without that paragraph in it, but she, for some reason, thinks it's important to include it. In 2012, we asked the liquidators to check the company's records. A year later, they confirmed we were right. The money from the loan had come from the company, so the charge should never have been in Cooper's name, and therefore it was wrong of him to assign the charge to his creditors. We thought the case was finally over and the liquidators had said they would accept a payment plan so our home would be saved. So what we've gone from here is having a loan that they thought would ease everything to having to have a payment plan to pay back this loan. I really don't understand this story unless it simply is they got a loan that they couldn't repay. Now that would make a lot of sense. That would back up all of this. Just we got a loan, in financial trouble, got a loan, but couldn't pay it back. Instead of all this stuff about it being an investment and all this thing about charges and companies and liquidators, our home could be saved, but in court because I hadn't submitted the paperwork correctly. Now that's interesting because a lot of the way through this, Rayner uses joint pronouns our and we, and they act together. We thought the case was finally over. For example, we tried to argue, but here it's I hadn't submitted the paperwork correctly. She takes responsibility of that herself. It's not a we hadn't submitted the paperwork correctly. The judge dismissed the letter as just a piece of paper. I don't know what letter she's talking about. This letter comes from nowhere. She hasn't said which letter it is. Is it a letter she wrote to the court? Is it the letter from the liquidators? Is it a letter from the creditors? I don't know. She just brings up this letter from nowhere. The judge dismissed this letter as just a piece of paper. She doesn't say why the judge said it was just a piece of paper. I imagine the judge said, because blah, 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 this is just a piece of paper. Again, hidden. He refused to allow another appeal from us, and our home for over 20 years that we had lovingly restored with our own hands was gone. So that is a very long way, I think, of saying we took out a loan and couldn't pay it back. Property in France. This is an allegation that, as she says in her book, when we lost this home and it was repossessed, we were homeless. But they owned property in France. So technically they weren't homeless. They had a house and a land in France. So homeless is not accurate description. They weren't homeless. They had property in France. What we own in France is an uninhabitable ruin in a bramble patch on the boundary of a family member's property. Bought in 2007 by remortgaging our home, and we've got remortgaging there. So they remortgaged their home in 2007, took out a loan in 2008. This is a financially chaotic story, I think. I'm not saying there weren't financial troubles. In fact, I believe there were real financial troubles. But remortgaging in 2007, taking out a loan against the home, so it was double secured on, if you like, in 2008. This is a couple that have real financial problems. Anyway, bought in 2007 by remortgaging our home. To prevent a developer buying it, it has missing walls, a collapsed roof, no running water, drainage or electricity. It is not the property shown in the video accompanying the Observer article. We have never lived there. That would be impossible, and we haven't since 2007. Haven't been there since 2007. The insinuation that we were not homeless, the central premise of the book, is utterly unfounded. Nor do we owe any council tax in France. There are no debts outstanding there. So the allegation is, you said you were homeless and this is why you had to walk, but you had a house in France. And she's saying it wasn't livable in. Now, I don't know about you. When I think of homeless people, I think of people without a home. And actually, no matter how uninhabitable it is, someone who's got a home and land in France, I don't believe that falls under the definition of homeless as most people would know it. Owning land, owning a home, no matter that it's got a collapsed roof or so on, I don't believe is the definition of homeless. So unfounded, I don't think it is unfounded. That is not what I would call homeless, Rainer. That might be what you call homeless, but not me, and I think most people as well. Interesting that the end part here is in present tense. Nor do we owe any council tax in France. There are no debts outstanding there. Not there hasn't been a history of debt or anything like that. We did try and sell the land after the economic crash in 2013, but the local agent said it was virtually worthless and saw no point in marketing it. So we have the word virtually there, which means it's not worthless. It was virtually worthless. What does that mean? What does virtually mean? Does it mean you're not going to make a profit on it? Or is it really worth pennies? I'm interested in why it's worth pennies, because remember, you bought it to prevent a developer buying it. So is that developer no longer interested? Are other developers no longer interested? Who knows? Now, let's go on to what she's called debts. But really, it's around about the fact that Rainer Wynn is not her real name. It's a pen name. It's a made-up name. And there's an allegation that Maynard and Moth is also a made-up name, that they've been using these different names in order to circumvent some rules around debts or so on. So how does she deal with that? I find the accusation that we are using pseudonyms to avoid debt particularly surprising. Again, it's not denying it. It's just surprising. As the Observer has so intrusively entered every other area of my life, they could have run a simple credit check against me and Moth. Had they done so, they would have found we have no debts. When we lost our home, contrary to reports in some media outlets, we chose not to become bankrupt. We hoped that one day we would be able to settle the outstanding debts that had accrued during the years of the intense work on the court case, which had taken up so much of our time and energy. Anyone who has struggled on a limited budget will know debts begin to accrue. So again, hiding in the crowd, the safety of the crowd. It's not just we found debts begin to accrue. It's anyone who has struggled on a limited budget will know that debts begin to accrue. It can be very difficult to stop them growing. She doesn't say it was. She doesn't say that at all. In fact, she's taken herself out here. It's just anyone who struggled on a limited budget will know debts begin to accrue. And it can be very difficult to stop them growing. It was very difficult for us to stop the debts growing. But instead of going bankrupt and having all our debts wiped off, as would have been so easy to do, we made arrangements with our creditors for minimal repayments. When, much later, I received an advance for the Salt Path, we used this to repay what we could. Not everything, and granted, I don't know how big the advance was and how big the debts were, but it's just repay what we could. It's not pay off all the debts, which is, she's saying we are debt free. Now, that's about now, and the Salt Path advance, I guess, was earlier. But just let's note that it wasn't we paid off everything, it's what we could. Over the subsequent years, I tracked down our remaining debts and now believe I have tracked down and repaid everyone. So she may not, she's opening her head to the fact that there may be debts still outstanding. I believe I've tracked down and repaid everyone. That's an honest statement. I'm not saying there's anything nefarious around this. I'm saying that, and as far as she's concerned, she's tracked down and paid everyone. But by saying I believe, she's open to the fact there could be other people that they owe money to. That's interesting because she does say doing a credit check would have found no debts. So is that the debts that come up in a credit check are formal debts that are recorded through credit card companies, through loans, through court cases and so on. But there are kind of informal debts as well, as we will come on to. I do not owe, as claimed in the Observer, hundreds of thousands of pounds to those who evicted us from our home. We have never been informed that the repossession did not satisfy the manor. We have never heard from the claimants since we left our home, and they have made no attempt to contact us, despite me keeping all communication channels open so that they could. Now, this part here is not about debts. This is about communication. I do not owe hundreds of thousands of pounds to those who evicted us from our home. Now, hundreds of thousands of pounds is a large amount of money. Is it tens of thousands of pounds? Is it thousands of pounds? She doesn't say. She doesn't say what is owed. She doesn't say, I owe nothing to these people. It's just, I do not owe hundreds of thousands of pounds to those who evicted us from our home. And then she talks about communication rather than debt, as if I do owe this money, I don't know about it because I've never heard about it. We have never been informed that the repossession did not satisfy the matter. So what we have here is not the fact that the repossession did not satisfy the matter. It's that I've never been informed of it. Distance. Just don't know about it. Not to say it didn't happen or it isn't happening. It's just, I don't know about it. We have never heard from the claimants. Now, for them to be claimants, we have never heard from the claimants since we left our home. They have made no attempt to contact us, despite me keeping all communication channels open so that they could. Well, why would they want to? Why would you keep all communication channels if the matter was finished and done? Close those communication channels and move on. Interesting here. This is all about whether they've been communicated to about a debt, about this matter, rather than whether the debt exists. And the level of debt, as you can see, is not specifically stated here, which I mean by level, I mean from zero through to £999,000. And to the man in the garage who says I owe him money, if I've missed the debt, please contact me. So from saying the credit checks will show we're debt free, we seem to have the admission here that some debts could be around, just she doesn't know about them. Much as we loved our home and never wanted to leave, contrary to the Observer's allegations, we have never used it as our legal address for the purpose of avoiding debt. I put a postal redirection in place for 3 years following the eviction. There was nothing more I could do to control the post. As anyone who has ever moved house knows, once again, hiding here and saying, I'm just like other people. I'm going to bring other people into it. There's nothing specific about me here. That's the safety of other people. As anyone who has ever moved house knows, despite our best efforts, some post will always sneak through the net. There is an admission, I think, that some post has sneaked through the net, has gone to the house, has not been redirected, because she says it will always happen. I think there, something has happened. Again, it's the difference, as she's explaining all this, between the truth of the matter, the facts of the matter, and whether she's aware of it, whether she has been informed of it or not. So the post will always sneak through the net and end up at your old property. As anyone who has ever lost their home knows, so once again, this is trying to create a bond with the audience or sections of the audience, but also saying my experience is not that unusual. Don't think I'm odd. Don't think my story is strange or unusual or there's anything funny about it, because this happens to a lot of people. As anyone who has ever lost their home knows, when you're evicted, changing the address on your driving licence is the least of your concerns, is a very convoluted way of saying, I didn't change the address on my driving licence. I forgot to. I wasn't concerned about it. Again, she doesn't deal with herself personally. It's when you are evicted, changing the address on your driving licence is the least of your concerns. She's not admitting to what has happened there. And then we go on to the our names part. So finally, what's in a name? Everything, it seems, from some of the hate that's come my way because of what the Observer article has said about me and Moth. Let me explain my names. Wynne is my maiden name, and like most women who have married, I've used both my maiden name Wynne and my married name Walker. So, most women, once more, I'm just normal. I'm doing what most women do. And I get it, it's true, but it's I need to persuade, I need to hide in the crowd, I need to say, look, this is all normal behaviour. Like most women who've been married, I use both my maiden name, Wynne, and my married name, Walker. In the early years after Moth and I met, I told him I disliked my name, Sally Ann. It made me think of ringlets and gingham dresses, and how I wished I'd been given the family name of Rayner. From then on, he called me Ray. It was the name many people who are close to me have known me by. Many, not all. And the name I love and have chosen as my pen name. Moth is just an abbreviation of his name, Timothy. Okay, so I understand that. Pen names, I completely understand. The allegation is not that you've got a pen name, because accusing an author of having a pen name, not a big allegation. The allegation is that you've been using this change of names kind of dishonestly, I think is what the allegation is. And let's deal with her one. Makes perfect sense. I'm using my maiden name, and also I'm going to use the name that I really would have liked to have, that my husband calls me, Ray Rayner. But what about Moth? Why does Moth have a pen name? Why does he use her maiden name? That is not said. The pair of them are doing things under different names. They're under two pairs of names. They're legal given names and these pen names. So Moth is using his wife's maiden name as her surname at times. Now, that's not normal. As you'll see, it's not like most married men. Moth uses my maiden name at times. That's not explained. It's not explained why Moth has a pen name. He's not an author. And why he uses her maiden name. We are accused of hiding behind pseudonyms. We have the concept of hiding again. This is blatantly untrue. By the way, kids, it is not just untrue. It's blatantly untrue. That need to persuade us again. Like most, we use these nicknames alongside our legal names. Like most? Really? Like most? Like some? Some people use their middle name as their first name, but most people don't use nicknames alongside their legal names. And what does alongside mean? I understand. So, for example, Timothy Walker, his mates might call him Tim, yeah, and he might be known as Tim. But when he has to do legal things, when he's got a credit card, when he has to sign an official document, it will be Timothy Walker and not Tim Walker, even though Tim is what he's known as. But that's a shortened name. That's shortened for him. These nicknames, I think, is downplaying them, and it's alongside our legal names. The legal names we use for our bank records, our utility bills, etc. Now, you might think what that is saying, and I think the impression she wants to give there, is we use the legal names for all legal purposes, but she only mentions two and then goes, etc. I believe that there are some allegations that they have set up companies using the pen names, and they are directors of companies using the pen names. I don't know if that's true or not. It's an allegation there. But what she doesn't say is we use our legal names for all legal purposes at all. It's just this catch-all, etc. Our friends and neighbours use Sal and Tim interchangeably with Ray and Moth. There's nothing hiding in our names. Our friends and neighbours use Sal and Tim interchangeably with Ray and Moth. Sal and Tim come first. That is the first one she thinks of mentioning. So is that the one they use most? Is that the one they go by most often? And Ray and Moth are slightly secondary names that people don't actually call them by. It's the showbiz names, it's their pen names. Don't know, but we've got the two things going on there. There is nothing hiding in our names. Now, first of all, we have that concept of hiding again from Rayner, from Sal, or Rayner. There is nothing hiding in our names. And also, the fact she has to tell us what's not happening is interesting. That quite often when someone tells us what isn't happening, like when someone says, I don't care, and they really care. When someone tells us what's not happening, it can be happening. I'm not saying that's directly the case here, but it is a possibility. There is nothing hiding in our names. And the statement finishes, I would like to thank all the readers and viewers who have shared our journey and followed these events, either by reading the book or watching the film, and especially those who have written with their kind message of support in the last few days. You have no idea of how much that has meant to me and my family. So this is just, again, joining in with people. If you're reading this and you're cynical and you're suspicious and you're reading it and going, not sure I buy that, Do you feel like an outlier? Do you feel like the odd one? Because look, readers and viewers have been supporting her, have written with kind messages as well, and that's meant a lot to this woman. That's the note she finishes on, and it is, if you're cynical, there are people who believe me and have said these allegations or wanted to support me through these allegations. And that is the statement of Raynor Winn. So what do I think after having done all that? Well, look, it's complex. I think the biggest thing that I see in that is this concept of hiding a lot, of not telling the truth all the time about everything. And that's not about lying. That's about having a very specific slice that is on view and making sure that everything else is hidden in private agreements or just things omitted or things not shown. So I think that that is the biggest concept that comes to her. To be fair, that's writing. You can't write a book about an event and write about everything in her life and every little thing. Some things do need to be simplified. Look, she doesn't spend a lot of time denying the allegations. She spends a lot of time explaining the allegations instead, which is interesting, that she just doesn't go a pack of lies. What she feels is she has to tell these quite long stories sometimes in order to take on the allegations. The illness descriptions leave me with more questions than answers. Her story has undoubtedly changed there through time, and she is curiously distant and using some curious worries around talking about Moth's illness, and has very specifically and says she's changed part of the story, or she will change part of the story she tells going forward. As do the names thing. The names thing doesn't add up to me. Again, we've got the hidden part of why Moth feels he has to have a name, and also what she didn't explain legally what concept they do use their names from. But was she hoodwinking? Was she getting people to buy this book on a false premise? To be fair, I think the premise of the story is true. They were down on their luck, ran out of money, and then they went walking. It's just this backstory is slightly different from the very simple one that was portrayed in the book. But look, the premise of the book, if you like the book, if you bought into the story of hope there, I do think there is truth in that, that they were down on their luck and kind of lost their home and decided to go walking. The rest of her life might not be so straightforward. It does appeal like she wants to hide things a lot, and not just in the book, but in this statement as well, using different names, not coming out and saying what happened around the embezzlement, not being really straightforward with us about the loan story either, and saying you were homeless when you had a property in France as well. So there we go. That's the statement of Raynor. What do you think? Do let me know in the comments if you can, or let me know in the socials. You'll find the links to all the socials at neveratruerword.com, which is also where you can find more ways of seeing whether someone is telling the truth or lying in their statements, including one on the author Neil Gaiman. If you're interested in that one, he deals with the allegations, the very serious allegations that were made about him. I hope you enjoyed something a bit different. We'll be back with crime soon. Don't worry. We'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.